All right, Brent, thanks for joining this morning with your topic here of the five P's. I am Jason Sellnow from Straightforward Financial Insights. I'm going to allow a recording for you. Sorry about that. But we have a fractional CFO firm with a bit of an emphasis on exit planning. So, we have some, I think, good synergies with what we do here and what you do at MKE Business Coach. So, Brent, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into the five P's.
Yeah, thank you. Again, as Jason said, I'm honored to be here. I'm Brent Halfwassen. I'm the founder and co-owner of MKE Business Coach. While I'm talking, if you've not had an opportunity to do it, please download a copy of our scaling score tool. You can see the bit.ly link up on the screen or the QR code, depending on how you want to go ahead and get it. It's going to bring you to a downloadable file that you fill in the information, download it, and it's going to help you scale score your business as you go along, which I want you to go ahead and do. So as Jason mentioned, I've been doing business coaching since 2017, and that's when I founded the business. And we do a lot helping people, I would say, in the pre-exit phase. How do you get pieces ready to go? How are you organize your business so that when you decide you're ready and you want to get your bucket of cash and leave into the sunset, that you have everything in place in order to do it. And that's actually what led me to create this 5Ps, because it's a checklist and an analysis for what do the best in class businesses have in order to be able to maximize their enterprise value on the way out. And here's the hint and the cheat code. It's not just about maximizing your enterprise value on the way out. It actually makes your business run well while you're actually running it. So we want to encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Again, if you have any questions, we're going to go through this material pretty quickly, but this is meant to be an overview. So if you have questions afterwards, I want to give you an opportunity to reach out and connect with me. So ultimately, what do we do at MKE Business Coach? We help business owners align what they do with the numbers that they generate so that ultimately you can turn your hard work into hard cash. So we stand in that gap between all the actions you're taking as an amazing person doing your skill, craft, or trade, all the numbers and financials that come out in KPIs, and we're going to look in the middle and find out where are the gaps, where are the opportunities, and how can we help you keep growing your business, because being a growth business does mean upgrading your current business. So let's just dive in. We talked about 5Ps. What's the first P? We're talking about people. I think anyone who has run a business for any period of time starts to understand the most important thing that you have in your business are people. Doesn't mean that folks can't be interchanged, doesn't mean that you're not going to swap stuff out, that you need training, or that people can't get better. But if you haven't figured out the good people portion of your business, you've got a significant gap and a significant risk. If I were to sell my business and all of a sudden everyone was like, Brent's out, I'm out, let's go, you don't necessarily have much to sell. Now, we're going to talk about some other pieces that can mitigate some of that and are equally important, but we'd be remiss if we don't start here. So first thing you got to look at is the owners. And when I'm thinking about the owner, obviously you're selling, you're like, what does it matter? I'm leaving. Hey, here's how it matters. Have you actually set yourself up to be able to not be a critical, essential part of the business? If you are required in every piece that goes on in the business, that there's a mistake. Even as you're growing and scaling, there's things that you used to do that don't belong in your skill set anymore. So we want to take a look at that. Second piece that's critical is evaluating your team. Where's your team at? What are the capabilities? Where are the gaps? What's your sort of succession plan, roadmap? How are you building people up? That's really essential, because again, if you're buying a business and you're walking away, so you're selling your business, you're walking away, or you're evaluating a business to buy, the people that are coming along with it are going to matter. The next part is we're going to analyze customers. Is your business set up to be a lot of one-time customers with not much repeat business? Is it set up on a monthly recurring cash flow model? There's lots of ways to look at that, but you need to dig in and understand the customers. Is it, all the way starting back with an ideal client profile, ideal customer profile, moving all the way forward to what are the behaviors through the management, through all the pieces that you do, through customer service, through satisfaction on the back end, upselling, all those pieces. And the last part, we're going to evaluate partners. And by this, I'm not talking about like equity partners in the business. I'm talking about strategic partners. Jason and I have decided to partner here in order to put on this webinar, and I'm grateful for the opportunity he's providing. But who are your strategic partners? They're the ones who are like, they don't get a 1099, they don't get a W-2, but they're essential. They maybe feed relationships in, maybe they're a key vendor, maybe there's something there. So I want to pause and give Jason a chance to comment on the critical part of people.
Yeah, so one of the things that comes to mind, and I have to be cognizant of our time. We're already 5 minutes into it. We've got five P's to cover. But from that fractional CFO role, customers can be a big one. Customer concentration. I think you alluded to that a little bit. I certainly liked the conversation around, recurring business revenue is much more valuable than a one-time type scenario, especially when you start jumping into KPIs like what's my customer acquisition cost and things like that. But as far as getting back to customer concentration, so a number of years ago, I had a business owner that had a lot of customer concentration in the automobile industry. And, money was great, times, were going along quite well until they weren't. So this goes back to somewhere around, I think, 2007, 2008-ish. And there was still business to be had, but the big three came in front of Congress, and they had some uncomfortable meetings. They flew in on their private jets when they were, darn near bankrupt. So that business in that industry changed quickly overnight. There was still some business to be had, but for the small business owner, to float terms, I think I remember it was pretty onerous. They wanted to pay the first 50% in their contracts somewhere around 180 days. Well, it's just a cash flow killer. So that customer concentration can be a pervasive risk. And that's one of the things that, at least on the fractional CFO side, we want to work with the business owner on recognizing those risks.
Yeah. So if you're following along and downloaded the worksheet, I want you to look at the people category. I want you to circle of the 4 segments, the one that is most, that you think needs the most development. And that's a place where you're going to do. And then give yourself a general score. Where do you think you're on people? Looking at these 4, there are some other pieces we can look at. I think these are the 4 majors. Give yourself a score of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, wouldn't change anything. Hopefully no one's a 1, but, sort it out in between. All right, keep it on. Processes. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about processes. How do you mitigate the issues that can come with people? It's having processes that are robust. And what do we mean by robust? This is a spot when we say we're standing in the gap between what you do and the numbers and the results that it achieves. It almost all comes down to process. So first of all, is your process documented? That means it's actually written down. Are the processes repeatable? Or each time I have to do this presentation, do I have to go back from scratch? Or can I actually find a way to repeat it, for example? How much automation are you using? There's a lot. I mean, we're in the world of AI. There's tons of things going on. Some are good, some are not, some are helpful, some will disappear next week. But what type of automation are you doing? Let's take the workload off people, put it into a process when it's documented, repeatable, and automated. Then we're not watching it all the time. And the last one I encourage you to look at is strategic. Am I really thinking about how is this going to fit in the grand scale of what I need to do? Many of us have worked in businesses. Many of us probably have businesses that there's a load of processes, but they were built for the moment, or they were built for a certain size, or they're built for a certain scale. And it is the reason that sometimes when we look at a wholesale revamp of our systems, it's because we have a mishmash of processes. One of the places MKE Business Coach loves to dive in, how do we streamline it? How do we make sure it makes sense? How do we forward proof it a little bit? And how do you, most importantly, pick the critical ones that are actually going to matter? Of the 78 things you have to do, there's probably 1, 2, or 3 processes that if you tighten up the most are going to have the biggest impact on your business. And that's where we want to come in and see you have success.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quickly on documentation. And in the exit planning part of what it is that we do in the exit planning world, there's some uncomfortable conversations about real things that do happen, which is death, disability, maybe even divorce. Who's doing what, how documented are those particular processes? Because unfortunately, bad things can happen to good people. And I've had experiences where, a business, and this isn't always business owners that I've worked with, but an introduction, right, of one of the business partners has had a disability, or there's been a death with one of the founding partners. And it's, again, I think one of those pervasive risks that, we work real hard here in the Midwest and all across the country for that matter. And it also takes time to document those things, right, Brent? I mean, you're busy, you're taking care of the things that you like to do as a business owner, accounting, finance, documenting things isn't always at the top of the list, but having someone you know, to show the value in that so that those things can get done because um, it does translate ultimately when one does want to exit, that those processes are documented and the business is running and can run without the business owner.
Think about a really powerful franchise operation you might buy into. What are you buying? You're buying the name. We're going to talk about perception a little bit where the branding shows up. But one of the key parts you're going to get into are processes. Yeah, the widget is there, the name is there, the marketing's there, but you're going to buy into processes so that each time you do it, you can start plugging in team members and you don't have to build it from scratch. That's the whole point of the franchise. At least I hope it's the whole point of the franchise.
Right.
So dig into processes. This one's really essential. And I want you to, again, evaluate your business, circle the one, documented, repeatable, automated, or strategic, where you are the weakest. Okay. Don't circle them all. You're going to get too many things to do. When we're done with this webinar, we're going to pick one of these items to work on and encourage you to reach out to us and get some support. All right, moving on to number 3, the product, right? Or product or service. This is your thing. This is your key. This is whatever you're selling. Here's some ways that I like to evaluate the product or the service. First, is it beyond you? Can it be, we talked about this a little bit on when we're talking about the owner, but can it be delivered beyond the owner? Is it limited to that? Think about if you're doing a second location, third location, franchising, right? You're not going to be able to be there to do all things at all time. And again, if we talk about selling, probably you're not selling the business in order to get a job. You're selling the business to get a payout and maybe go live a different dream. So is it beyond you? Next one, do you have it efficient? There are things that we can deliver that we can get it done, but it's not efficient. It's sort of a mess to do it. Get that sorted. Evaluate your logistics. We had, obviously a big reminder over the last 5 years. We've been hearing a lot about supply chain and logistics. Logistics impacts things differently in different ways for different businesses. But how are we going to get more efficient, right? We've chosen to figure out how to do a Zoom delivery of this in 30 minutes because it's actually an efficient way to value your time. What are you thinking about that's always upgrading and getting to the next level in terms of efficiency? And then last, we're going to look at quality. Quality is the one that a lot of people claim that they have. Oh, my customer service, my this, that, and the other thing, my product never breaks, blah, 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 blah. Are you actually measuring your quality? Do you have a way to measure that, particularly if you're delivering a service? That can be hard. There are some ways to do that. But I want you to evaluate those pieces because this can be a key part of why someone wants to buy it and maybe bolt it onto their operation, buy it and run it alone, or it allows you to succeed in the marketplace.
Yeah, beyond you, I think is one I'll touch on here, and that is in the term exit planning. I'm not a big fan of it. I think the industry wide, we're trying to figure out some different terminology for that. But there's a saying in that world, and that is exit planning is just good business planning. So think about the last vacation that that the business owner took. If you took your laptop because you wanted to, or you liked to check in, that's one thing. But if you had to check in, then it's owner dependent, right? And so we want to help business owners get to a point where there's freedom, right? And that's transferable, and that's something that you can sell when the day comes that you want to walk away and exit the business. So, I think I'm ready to move along to profit. If you are, Brent, is there anything else you want to mention there?
Well, again, circle the item that the one that stands out most to you. We're keeping track, and then score yourself on where you're at on product or service, and do the same thing for the process. All right, moving on to profits. All right, this is a spot that people think, all right, they're in financials, they're going to spend a lot of time. There's a reason I brought it up here fourth. I actually think profits is a lagging indicator. You only find out, we're in the month of October as we're recording this right now. Hopefully sometime soon you're going to find out what your results were for September, and you can't impact a single one of those because September is gone. So it is important, but it's not the most important. Okay, so obviously the most clear one is your financials. Where are you at on your financial statements? Do you have them? Are they clean? Are they well done? Are they timely? Are they accurate? right? Those that may seem like basic blocking and tackling. As your business grows and gets more complicated, it is more and more critical that that happens, and it may need to happen, by the way, more than monthly. So you may have a frequency of which, I mean, some businesses need to have access to at least some version of their profits and financials daily. Okay. So figure that out. And then are you doing reviews? That's more than just getting the report, looking at it, shoving it in a drawer, and waiting for your accountant to do the taxes at the end of the year. This is, are you setting up a process? Let's review what actually went on there. What happened? How are we going to fix it? What is this telling us about our business? What now? Okay. Have you set up key performance indicators? I don't believe in having something that looks like the cockpit of an airplane for a KPI dashboard. I think that's way too complex. In the vast majority of businesses, we do not need that. What you need is something that looks more like the dashboard of your car. There are one probably big one that you really are taking a close look at, maybe two, and a couple of small ones. That's going to give you the general health. When you see something there that's a problem, then you can dive in. Obviously, when you're doing the review, you're going to dive in closer. But too many KPIs suddenly becomes, I don't know what to watch, so I'm not actually watching anything. Focus on the things that matter. Try to go with no more than 3. That's something we preach a lot at MKA Business Coach. Then finally, I want to highlight again, we're going back to the owner because this is key. Where's your compensation at? Again, if you step out of the business, someone else is going to want to come in and make sure that it's an income sustaining job for them. And so how you set your compensation, how you start to think about executive compensation, bonuses, we start getting into some tax planning. Those are more sophisticated techniques that are going to be really critical as your business grows.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of things there, Brent, that we talk about in the fractional CFO space, which again, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. 10 million in annual revenues and under is what I consider to be a good revenue range for somebody to work with a fractional CFO. And we want timely and accurate financial statements. Quite often when we get introduced to somebody, they're neither timely nor accurate. And that can be an issue, right? I've known business owners that, yeah, we're in October. They're just getting their financial statements from December 31, 2024. Well, summer, we had a nice warm 90-degree or almost last weekend, and now we've returned to what October actually is like. But we're about to come into the leaves falling off the trees and some freezing weather here soon, right? And we're getting financial statements from New Year's Eve time frame. So it's out of date, and a lot has happened since then. So we want timely and accurate information. Accounting is historical. You're right. It's good to have this be number 4, because as fractional CFOs, we want to help the company be forward thinking and anticipate things that are coming along in the marketplace or needs for capital, right? Oh, hey, we've got something that we've identified, but it's going to mean a capital purchase of $100,000 and some new equipment. What does that look like? Or we've decided to take on a contract that profit margin is sweet, but the cash flow is going to be out there a little bit. Well, bankers have to watch out for the bank at the end of the day. I mean, they want business like everybody else, but let's put together a 90-day cash budget forecast so that we can anticipate where some of those cash flow crunches might occur, and we're not going at the 11th hour to the bank and asking for money, because cash is king. I had a mentor back in the day, and he said, "Don't ever forget it, Jason, because it's the lifeblood of your business. You don't want to outrun your supply lines by growing too fast." So a 90-day forecast is often a tool that's, well, I can't think of a business that shouldn't really be run without one. You touched on KPIs and measuring things. I would agree. If you're measuring everything, you're kind of measuring nothing. So what's the most relevant to your business and the goals that you want to have, and that can be different from one business owner to the other, and maybe they're even in the same industry. It just depends on what goals they want to accomplish and where they're at in their personal cycle. But also in that same line of thinking, what we measure is what we get results with. Okay, so There's a big part of, not just putting debits and credits into place, but figuring out, where the company wants to go, where the business owner and that team, and we're aligning a lot of things right now. Going back to number one with the team and people to be able to all row well in cadence with each other, but having that regular check-in with what's relevant and salient to our business and what's, things can change from week to week. We have somebody that I'm working with that had a huge, little speed bump in things that wasn't expected, and that's life, right? And how quickly can that team pivot, and having a regular cadence of checking in on things is just invaluable. So I think we have one more to cover, and we've got about 9 minutes or less to do it. So Jason better be quiet and turn it over to Brent again for number 5.
No, we got this. Jason, I just want to highlight again, the other part about profits, putting it here, everything that your business does is what shows up in the numbers. Some people, like, they run two separate things, like the numbers are driving the business. That is not true. The numbers inform decision making that helps drive the business, but it's all your actions that drive what's going to show up entirely on this profits page. So do figure out, where is the gap? How do you take action? And some of the pieces we led into this profits lead us forward. So again,
Great
circle
point.
the one where you need the most impact on, and then let's move on to number 5, which is perception. Okay, there's 4 things I want to look at when we think about how is your company perceived. And this, by the way, people can be purchased, as you well know, just based on the brand perception, the customer impressions that are out there. There's a lot of stories like that. So first, obviously, we're going to evaluate the brand. The brand, as I'm going to define it, is, how do your customers think about you? How do they perceive you? Certainly, there's a lot of work you're doing to influence your brand, but are you really watching how people are perceiving you, and is that what you want for your business? Next thing you're going to evaluate is marketing strategy. Yes, you can implement new strategies. You can have new people. There's lots of pieces you can do here, but there is a trend line that has already followed you from behind, and some momentum. I had a friend who said marketing is like eating food. You can go for a period of time without eating food and you will continue to exist, but eventually it's going to come back and get you. So marketing is one of those leading indicators. You generally got to market first. The results are going to come later. What does that trend line look like for your company? Next one is, are you being a thought leader? One of the key ways to distinguish yourself, and I mean, I'll highlight Jason and I, what we're doing right now. We're trying to be a thought leader here and present information hopefully differently than you've looked at it before, to figure out there are other ways to figure out how to evaluate a business powerfully. And the last one on perception that is really, really powerful. It always has been powerful. I think it is more so in this age, is customer service. Ridiculously easy for someone who's not satisfied to share the word broadly. It's also easier for companies who are savvy to put out positive comments about their business and capture those testimonials and amplify them and make sure that we know where people are at. So I want you to evaluate, how are people perceiving your business? Again, circle one of those where you think, man, I got to really work one of these a little bit more than I have been, and how others are seeing your business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important. I mean, in the fractional CFO and exit planning space that we work with straightforward, this gets into, I think, someone else's silo a bit here, but it's certainly something that we can identify that can be an issue when it comes to the value of the organization and how well it runs, as an organization and as a business. I mean, if the brand is high customer service, that's the message that's being sent out. But anytime your customers need some sort of service, all they're getting is a chat bot or whatever, there's an obvious misalignment. And so, that's where I think sending someone over to Brent and, hey, somebody needs to have a conversation about this. We can identify those things. And I think you talked earlier about partners, right? I think we both have several partners in our networks that, if it isn't our core of what it is that we do, we can connect people quite quickly with people that have been vetted and we know and trust to solve those problems. So we want to make sure that those things are in alignment. Sure.
Absolutely. So let's bring the whole recap up again, right? We talked about people. Well, we talked about processes. We went through product and service. Hopefully, again, you're circling one of these and evaluating one. We talked about profits and we talked about perception. Okay, the thing I want you to take a look at, I'm gonna go back here a slide. Where are we at? There we go. The piece I want you to evaluate, hopefully you circled 5 different categories you need help on. Now I'm going to tell you, of those 5, pick one. Pick one to start on, the one that you can work on today. One of the things I say when I do these events, I don't want it to be a lecture. I want it to be a workshop. So I want you to figure one that you're going to work on. Okay. A little bit more. You already brought this up here, but that QR code will actually take you to be able to schedule some time with me if you're interested. You want to talk more about these 5 Ps. I know we blitzed through them. We basically just named them. I had a brief commentary and went on, but I want to give you that opportunity. You can also reach out to us. Find us at mkebusinesscoach.com and at Brent at halfwassen.com. We'll be happy to do that. Just a little bit about what we do. Financial clarity and planning. You're working hard, but not seeing enough profit. We really, like we mentioned here, we're going to dive into these details and roll up our sleeves and see what's underneath the cover, right? Managing growth and overwhelm when everything is urgent and important. Nothing is. Team retention, top talents leaving, you don't know why. Expansion, location decisions, there's lots of uncertainty, lots of things to look at. And also leadership and ownership transition, which is what we're talking about here. And we love to get in early. So at the point when you're ready, there's a great handoff for someone to really get you polished up and through the rest of that exit process. So
Yeah, that is a great point. Having a runway, right, that's sufficient for takeoff is one of those things that that often goes it's one of those pervasive risks, right? If we've got a 1-year runway or a 3-year or 5-year runway, I much prefer the 3 or 5 because so much can happen in industry wise or macro or regional dynamics in the economy.
if
So
you're looking at straight exit and you can go from a 3x multiples on EBITDA to 5 or 6 because you tighten up your processes, you've got people figured out, you've got your financials in a lot better situation. That's 3 years of like really, really high return work.
exactly.
But if you try 6 months out, you might be able to get it sold, but at a 3x instead of a 6x, that could really that'll hurt your long run aspects.
Yeah, that's where we have definite overlap in what we do, Brent. I'm glad you mentioned that. You can make the numbers real easy. Let's say it's $10,000 of EBITDA, net income, whatever. $10,000 times 3 is $30,000, but times 5 or 6 is $50,000 or $60,000. That's like 100% return. It's certainly going to be work, but best in class, improving some of these things, and you start moving those decimal points over, for a larger business that's scaled or even scale along the way in that runway. That's a difference maker. I thought about just, maybe traveling to Europe in my retirement, but maybe I might be able to add, Antarctica or whatever to that, life goal list or charitable giving or whatever goals the individual has.
Love it. We have time for a couple of questions if anyone wants to weigh in the chat. Again, I'm Brent Halfwassen. I really appreciate the time you've taken with me. I want to appreciate and thank Jason for bringing me on and giving me this opportunity to share what I've learned.
I want to thank you too, Brent. We don't have any questions at the moment, and we're at 8:59 Central, so I think you've timed it out very well with your presentation. I don't have my information up there, but if you can find Brent, you can find Straightforward Financial Insights on LinkedIn as well. Just with a simple search, we're at www.straightforward.today, as in call straightforward today. And again, thank you so much for your presentation, your time, and all the information that you've had. I will get this posted out on our YouTube channel, and then I'll send you the video. I think you're going to post it on some of your media resources as well.
Absolutely. Do follow both of us on LinkedIn and YouTube, and stay in touch because we're always putting out more content and other ways you can make your business awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Brent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.